Hi, this is my Tetris clone made in Python using Pygame. Pygame is a module that you can import into Python that just aids in game development and gives you like a graphic interface and stuff like that. So let's just talk about what it is and how it works. This is the main menu. I called it StriS so I don't get sued, but I'm not actually going to distribute this for money, so it doesn't matter. Uh, these are the options for the main menu. This will just exit the game. This is just an about screen. This displays your high scores. High scores are actually saved in a text file. And so even after you get a high score and then exit the game, when you come back to the game, the high scores will still be saved there. And same with the options. All the options are also saved in a text file that stay in between instances of the game. And so these are all the options that you have. You can turn hold on or off. You can turn ghost functionality on or off. DAS is the auto repeat when you're holding down like left or right to move. Startup is how long after you start holding the button before it starts repeating. And then interval is how fast it repeats. And so you can change these by hovering over them and scrolling the mouse wheel up or down. It's not the most intuitive way of changing them, but Pygame is very limited in the GUI options that you have. So that's what I decided to go with. Um, and then you can also change the controls. So how you change a control is you click on it, and then you press a key to change the control. So say that I want to change left to R for whatever reason. Now it's R, or to backspace, right? It also won't let you change a control to another control that already is used. So if I want to change soft drop to left, I'm pressing left right now, but it won't let me because left is already taken. So let's just keep it down. And these also get saved between instances. It won't update the options file until you click apply, right? So you change your settings, then you press apply, and then it'll change the options file. In fact, I can show you that right now. So left, let's just change it to something random like Y, and then apply, and then let's leave. And then when we come back, left is still Y. But let's change it back to left, because I like it at left. Okay, so now let's go to play. You have 4 game modes. A lot of what I did with this game was dependent on Tetris guidelines. Tetris guidelines is the sort of set of guidelines that the Tetris company puts out to companies that make licensed versions of their games. It's Tetris's attempt to make the game sort of homogenous in how they play. Um, and so Marathon, Sprint, and Ultra are all required game modes by Tetris guidelines. I also included Endless, which is just where the level doesn't cap at all, and it just keeps going until you die, and it keeps getting faster and faster. Ultra is how many points you can get in 3 minutes. Sprint is clear 40 lines as fast as you can. And then Marathon is just get to 150 lines cleared, and it just saves the best score out of all those. So let's just go into Marathon and see how the game works. This is the game. You can say we have a combo counter, what level we're on, which affects the speed, and it affects the speed according to a curve put out by Tetris guidelines. Lines is how many lines you've cleared. Score is your current score. All the scoring is also based on Tetris guidelines, so it's all accurate to how official Tetris games score their games, including back-to-back, singles, doubles, triples Tetrises, comboing, uh, T-spins, T-spin minis, stuff like that. That's all in there. This is the best of in your high scores, whatever the high score is, and then this is the time. And then, yeah, you can pause either by clicking pause down here or by pressing P or whatever your pause button is. And see you have it as resume, go back to menu, or restart the game. So it has hold functionality up in the corner. And how you use hold functionality is it will, when you press the hold button, that piece will go in there, and then I can't bring that piece back until I place another piece. And now I can bring that piece back. And so that's exactly how it works in regular Tetris games. You can clear lines. It will recognize doubles, triples, singles, and Tetrises. Right, so that's a triple, sorry. that a triple? I feel like that should have been a double. Hold on, am I going crazy? Anyway, so you can clear lines and it will tell you what it is. Okay, I think I was just being crazy. It has back-to-back functionality, so if your last line clear was a Tetris and then you get another Tetris, then it'll tell you. Well, I messed this up. All right, let me start over. So back-to-back functionality works if you get one Tetris and then your next line clear. It doesn't have to be the next piece that you place, but the next line clear is also a Tetris, then you'll get a back-to-back bonus. And this game shows you when you get a back-to-back bonus. So there's one Tetris, and then the next one should say back-to-back. Jeez. Thank you. Uh-oh. Whatever. We can put this anywhere. Right, so now it says back-to-back Tetris. The game, this is the big thing that I really like about this, is that it uses the standard rotation system used in all Tetris guideline games. So how the standard rotation system works is you try to rotate a piece. If after the piece is rotated, it would be obstructed either by the sides of the board or by another piece like that's already placed, then it tries 4 tests, and it tries them in order. And the first test that works, it executes that one, and if none of the tests work, then you don't rotate at all. And what the tests do is they slightly shift the piece, like maybe like up a cell and right a cell, or right 2 cells, up 1 cell, or whatever. It's dependent on the piece. It's dependent on the current piece's rotation position, like if it's in the starting position or rotated once clockwise or whatever. And then it's also dependent on which direction you're rotating it in. And so say that I want to rotate a T piece, but after rotating it, it will not be placed properly. Then it will try to rotate it and then shift it slightly. And if that works, then it will place it. And that's what allows a lot of T-spins to work and a lot of S and Z spins to work and stuff like that. This T-spin that I'm about to show you doesn't actually use any what's called wall kicking. It actually just gets placed automatically and it's fine. But just because I want to show you that this game does recognize T-spins, let's just run through that right now. And so I'm about to get a T-spin, and over in the corner it'll say T-spin double, right? Or double T-spin. So it does recognize T-spins. And then it also recognizes, let's see if I can set up some sort of S or Z spin. I just got to be careful about, I just got to make sure that I do this correctly. Boom. Boom. Okay, so we're gonna set up a Z spin. And so if this was just normal rotation, you would not be able to get this Z piece into this little location. But using the Tetris standard guideline, the standard rotation system, you can spin right into there. So that's really cool that the game actually allows for all that. So it allows for comboing, bonuses. Comboing will give you bonuses in score, all that stuff. We can really quick look at some of the other game modes, like Sprint. It'll show you what your time is, and it's comparing against best time instead of best score. Because this wants you to clear 40 lines as fast as possible. Okay, so let's go to the menu. And that's about it for the game itself. Now let's really quick just go through the code and see how it does that. I'm not going to go into it too much. But let me see what we have here. Okay, so for the first thing is this is the class for the piece. Every piece, for each piece, it draws every cell individually of the piece. So each piece has like 4 little blocks in it, and it draws each of those individually, and when rotating, it like moves each piece individually. It doesn't actually rotate like an image. It just moves each of those cells, which depends on which piece it is and how it's already rotated. So this piece has a lot of different functions. This is XY update, which is just so that when it draws the piece, it's drawing it in the proper place according to where it actually is. Normal fall, this is just if you're normal falling. Soft fall, this is if the piece is hard falling, or not hard falling, sorry, if the piece is soft dropping. This is to move it left, this is to move it right. This checks to make sure that it can go left, so it can't go past the edge of the board and it can't go like through other blocks already placed. Same with right stop. Stop fall is just, it tests whether or not it should stop falling, so basically if there's any pieces below it. Hard fall is when you press up for default controls, it'll immediately get sent down. Ghost, this just figures out where the ghost should be. Ghost stop is used by Ghost to figure out like how far down to draw the ghost. Place check, this just gets called to see whether or not the piece should be placed. This uses all the Tetris guideline stuff, including how long it's been on the ground. So there's a timer. It's a half-second timer. If the piece has been on the ground for half a second without being moved or rotated, then the piece locks in place. Moving and rotating resets that counter, but only 15 times. If you've rotated more than 15 times on the ground, then it will not rotate. Then it will not it will not reset the timer anymore. Place, this is just when you place a piece, all the stuff that happens. It gives you a new piece. It changes what the next looks like. What else? It tests to see if placing the piece cleared any lines. It tested if that piece placement was a T-spin, etc., etc. This is to rotate it clockwise, and this is to rotate it counterclockwise. Each piece had to be individually done because it changes how much, like where each cell goes, depending on which piece it is. So you rotate clockwise, rotate counterclockwise. Rotate test is what handles all the wall kicks, and so that you can do like Z spins and S spins. It tests whether or not you can rotate, and then it iterates through these 5 tests of rotating it and then moving it slightly. And the first test that works, it sends back to the rotate and tells it to do that. Let me see. So this one had to be done individually for each piece, and then also individually for how the piece was already rotated and whether or not it's rotating clockwise or counterclockwise. This is the actual game. This calls the randomization. This just does everything once per frame, right? It makes pieces fall. If the next queue is shorter than 14, then it randomizes another 7. It decides when the win screen is. So for marathon, if you've cleared more than 150 lines. For sprint, if you cleared more than 50 lines. And for ultra, if it's been more than 3 minutes. And then these are just all the events to see what the player did. Draw game, this is just drawing the game onto the screen. It updates once per frame and updates what the screen looks like. Randomizer, so the randomizer uses 7-bag, which is the Tetris guideline randomization, so that it's not fully random. It takes the 7 pieces, shuffles their order, and then adds those to the next queue. So every 7 pieces will have 1 of each piece, so that you can't go longer than 12 pieces without a line piece, for example. Line clear, this is just to test after a piece gets placed whether or not any line should be cleared, how many lines got cleared so it can update the score, and whether or not that line clear was a T-spin line clear. T-spin test, this tests whether or not the piece placed was placed using a T-spin. The last move that the piece made has to have been a rotation. it has to have been a T piece, and then the 3 out of the 4 corner blocks around the center of the T piece have to be filled, either by a wall, a floor, or by another piece already placed. And then it also differentiates between T-spins and mini T-spins. Mini T-spins do vary a lot between games, but I used like the 2009 guideline, like the most recent T-spin mini guideline, to decide whether or not it's a T-spin mini or a full T-spin. And the score is different between T-spin mini and full T-spin, and the game will also tell you, it'll appear when it says T-spin underneath it, it'll say mini if it was a T-spin mini. This is just the function for holding a piece. This is the game over function when you lose. This it has loss detection using the way that the Tetris guidelines detects a loss. So either if your piece locks above the board, or if your piece spawns overlapping another block that already exists, then you lose. This is new game. This is just resetting a bunch of variables back to their original point when you restart the game or when you start a new game. This is the pause menu. This is the resume menu. It has a counter, so for the 3, 2, 1 that you saw, that's how this is handled. Get scores is how the code reads the text file that has all the high scores. Update scores is how the game rewrites that text file. Milliseconds just converts milliseconds. The game counts time using milliseconds. Like that's how Pygame counts time. This converts it into minutes, seconds, and milliseconds so that it can be shown in an actual useful way to the player. This is the win screen for when you win. This is the main menu. This is the play menu. This is the options menu, including all of the actually changing the options is in here. This is the high score menu, the about menu, get options. This is how the game reads the options. Write options. This is how the game changes the text file that has the options. And then apply options. This is how the game takes what options you selected and applies it to the game. So changes the variables in the code according to what you've selected. Really quick, let me show you how high score changes work. I can do it with endless really fast. Whoops. Where'd you go? Because endless ends. Marathon, Sprint, Ultra don't update the high score when you die, only when you win. You can't win endless, so it updates the high score when you die. So say that I'm playing endless and, oh, I beat the high score. It'll tell you your score, and then it'll say, congratulations, you beat the high score. And this is also the case with the other 3 game modes. When you win, it'll do this. And then let me see. I probably can't. Right, so now I did not beat the high score, and it's not saying, congratulations, you beat the high score. So it changed the high score to 252, and if we go to high scores, you see it's 252. So let's talk about those text files really quick. I have high score, records. See, it did change it to 252. Let me just change it back to the default. And then we have options, and this is where all the options are. Options default and records default are just what they start as when I made the game. So yeah, I think that's about it. I had a lot of fun making this. It was really educational. I learned a lot of stuff about Tetris while making it. I didn't really understand how wall kicking worked for the rotation system. And now I really understand it. And I also didn't really understand the difference between T-spins and T-spins minis. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll put the full code and then an exe that you can download in the description. Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.